Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in as we get right down to the end of our 1102 online course here. So just clicking myself into our due dates. You have basically spent the last unit, which was unit 10, working on your paper. It's a fairly open-ended unit. It had you trying to put together an outline, but also really getting started on the rough draft and, getting into, as far as possible, the writing process. So we now move into the final unit, which is actually two separate due dates. And of course, the fundamental thing that you're doing is just completing the final essay. So you'll notice that unit 11, which I will just click myself into, is set up in two pieces here. The first, and again, you really want to have your essay pretty much done as much as possible by this first due date, even though it's actually due in its absolute final form by the second due date. Because for the first one, you'll find yourself in a peer review group here. And there's just a basic discussion board set up so that you can go in, find your group, and by the first due date, post your paper to get feedback from other people in your group, and obviously to give feedback to those who posted their paper on time. So hopefully within a couple of days of the first due date here for Unit 11, when you've posted your paper, you'll get some feedback from within your peer group, and then you can move on to the final part of the unit, which is really just finalizing your paper and then submitting it officially through Blackboard here, so by the second due date. So just so everyone's clear, I'm going to go back into our due dates here. So that first due date then for submitting your work for peer review is December 3rd, Monday, December 3rd. And then the final essay is submitted no later than December 6th. And I should reiterate first and foremost here that that's the absolute latest date. So you may in fact want to shoot for Tuesday or maybe Wednesday to submit that, just in case there's technical problems. If the file won't submit, which sometimes happens for weird reasons, in which case I'll see that you've tried, but there's no file there, and then I'll get back to you and make sure that you get that file submitted. So I can't accept any work beyond that December 6th due date, so really just be aware of that as a kind of hard and fast end of our course. There's nothing beyond that. Okay, so in terms of the final essay then, one of the things to think about or to remind yourself of is what it's worth. So this is our, it's really our third essay, but kind of the second one that you're really starting from scratch, since the first two were clearly related. The whole course is out of 1,000 points. It's easy math for me. The essay number 3 here, this final essay, is worth 400, almost half of that grade, which is a lot. And I will be perfectly honest, I've thought long and hard about weighting it that much. Should it be less? Should it be more even? And the reason that it's weighted so heavily is because it really is this final moment to, and this is where we go back to where we'd actually started the course, that very first kind of overarching idea I'd given you to think about, is that any work for the course, but particularly the essays, remember, their fundamental purpose is for you to show me that you've learned and can now apply basic material in the course. So remember, the example I've used before is just like a simple history. Take some theoretical, simplified course. You learn a date in class, you have a test, you have to fill in that date. It's right or wrong. Your professor uses that assessment device, the test, simply to see if the student has learned material and can now fill it in on a test. The essay that we're doing now is no different. It's more complicated in as much as you're just not filling in a blank or a little bubble in a Scantron, but remember that I am still looking for the application of just a few basic concepts for the course. So what you can do, and really what you have to do, is treat this high-stakes test, this the heavy weighting that this final essay has, treat it as a glass half full, because it's not like you have to somehow write the most interesting, profound research paper ever. There's really just a few concepts that I'm looking for you to apply They're ones that we've been doing throughout the course. There's a zillion examples of how to do it correctly throughout the course, and I'm kind of going to walk you through basically what those are. So first and foremost, within that 400 points, a heavy weighting of all that really is the research component, because this is 1102, the research course. And so you really have to show me that you get some basic research concepts before moving on, so before passing the class. And what are those? Well, they're as simple as, do you know the difference between a primary and a secondary text? We've covered that. It's in the course. It should be fairly obvious. Primary text is the main one, the literary text you're talking about. For a lot of people, it's Death of a Salesman. Maybe it's a short story that you're working on, whatever that main text is. And then obviously your secondary stuff is the research stuff. Material from the databases. Maybe you've found other print sources. And remember, and this is the one component that is really important, is that the secondary sources you found are not just kind of tangentially related to your primary source. They are direct, critical, scholarly discussions of that literary text. So that's why we're using the McGill on Literature database or the Literature Resource Center database. You're finding print sources that are like scholarly discussions of the primary text that you're studying. So if you're doing the play, Death of a Salesman, some sociology textbook on America in the 1940s, it might relate in some very kind of abstract way to the kind of world that the Lomans were living in, but it's not a secondary source of the kind that we need. It's not a conversation about the story itself that you can then enter into. So a large part of that 400 points is just getting primary and secondary sources correct, the right number, the right type, and that's kind of it. So really, again, it's a glass half full. That's not complicated stuff, and it's not new. It's stuff we've done before. There's examples, there's reminders throughout the course. So the glass half full is that it's pretty simple, I think, I hope, to get that right and to get those points for yourself. So it's easy money. The next component of that is, of course, integrating that smoothly into your essay, which really brings us to the next kind of overarching concept for the course, is the idea of the shape of an essay, shape of a paragraph. And this is, again, just that idea of organizing the relatively general statements, like where your thesis goes and then where topic sentences go in a paragraph, the very start, and the relatively more specific statements that go to support that basic topic idea, right? So then you have topic sentence, you have maybe a refinement or sort of transition. You, of course, have direct quotation from the primary text. Then you have secondary source material that supports the idea and kind of further enhances the point. So all you've got to show me is that you get the organization of that and can apply it in your writing. And again, free money. It's not hard. It's not new. It's not something we haven't done a bunch of times in the course. It's not something that you haven't already gotten feedback on. So again, hopefully the tools are there in the course for you to be successful, and thus the glass half full, that 400 points becomes, again, just easy points to get, because you really are just, again, it's not quite as simple as just the Scantron bubble in, but it really is as simple as the application of course concepts now in this final essay, the assessment. So there's the research component, there's the basic handling of general versus specific in the overall essay. Beyond that, I mean, think about it. There's not a lot else that we've covered. Within the research thing, there's, of course, citing correctly. Doing the work cited is a huge thing, but again, that's pretty black and white. It's cut and dry. It's either right or wrong. There's examples here, models to follow. Just do it. I don't know how else to kind of teach that. But again, it plays a major role, because what your works cited page will show me, if it's either right or wrong, is that you've been engaged in the course and can now apply those basic, rules or basic concepts, or you haven't. It's kind of that simple. So beyond the research part, beyond the shape of the paragraph idea, almost everything else, and there's really not a lot of points after that, the only place you can really go wrong is with basic sentence level and grammar kinds of errors. So that's basic editing on your part, taking advantage of the peer review to get feedback, the Writing Assistance Center on campus or one of the satellite centers, any other resource you want to use to make sure that mechanically and grammatically your paper is okay. If you have those three basic components, the research, the whole shape of a paragraph, shape of an essay idea, and you're mechanically sound, that's really all you've got to show me. There's not much more that's complicated about it. There's no mystery. Let's put it that way. So 400 points is pretty intimidating, which is why I'm giving you this speech right now. But again, it's not some magic formula that you have to somehow figure out and produce this essay kind of out of nowhere. It really just is the culmination of everything that we've done in the course. The writing stuff, the research stuff, and again, basic mechanics. So of course, if you have any questions or you're unsure, even if you're 99% sure but not 100, just contact me. If you want to double check what sources you found, send me an email, ask if they're going to be okay, and I'll get back to you within an hour probably. So the final thing to say about this final essay is really to be as confident as you can, and that means making sure you've engaged with what's in the course and what we've done so far, with the requirements that are, now we're in Unit 9 as part of the assignment, but now have unfolded through these past few units, and just basic reminders that are throughout the course. You're not writing in the I voice. You're not writing a summary of the play or whatever primary text you're talking about. You're not just providing your opinion about it's great or it's boring or whatever. Use the peer editing checklist. It has all of this stuff. Does the author avoid I statements? That has to apply to your own essay too. And remember that that's as simple as the stuff that I look for too. It's not anything magical or mysterious. So if you have any questions about your essay or you're a little nervous about the point value situation, just be in touch with me. It's always good to have as much confidence as possible. And really, the secret to good writing, beyond just some fundamental techniques, is really just having the confidence in your own voice that what you're doing is the right thing. So it always pays to be 100% sure rather than 99 or 50, which is not where you want to be, right? So feel free to be in touch, and otherwise I look forward to reading everyone's final essay.